Admiral Marcus Daney stood on the bridge of the starship Endeavour, his weathered hands clasped behind his back as he gazed into the infinite expanse of space through the reinforced viewport. The stars seemed different here, stranger, more ancient, arranged in patterns that defied the star charts stored in their quantum databases. His reputation as the most decorated naval commander in the Terran Federation had been built over 3 decades of successful missions, but none had prepared him for this. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Sarachin from the navigation console, her voice tight with concern. "I'm still unable to establish our position. The stellar configurations don't match anything in our databases, and the quantum compass is giving contradictory readings." Daney's turned, his steel-gray eyes surveying the bridge crew. These men and women had followed him through the Proxima conflicts, the siege of Europa Station, and countless other battles that had cemented his legend throughout human space. They trusted him implicitly, but he could see the worry etched in their faces. They had been lost for 17 days now. "Dr. Voss," the Admiral addressed the ship's chief science officer, a brilliant but eccentric man with wild Einstein-like hair. "Any progress on determining what caused our dimensional displacement?" Dr. Heinrich Voss looked up from his quantum analysis station, adjusting his thick spectacles. "The energy signature that pulled us into this region of space was unlike anything in our scientific literature, Admiral. It appears to have been artificially generated, a focused gravitational anomaly that created a temporary rift in space-time itself." "You're saying someone or something deliberately brought us here?" This came from Commander Elena Vasquez, the ship's first officer and tactical expert. Her hand instinctively moved to the plasma sidearm at her hip. "That would be the logical conclusion," Voss replied. "The precision required to execute such a feat suggests a technology far beyond our current capabilities." The bridge fell silent except for the ambient hum of the ship's systems. The Endeavour was a Nova-class exploration vessel, equipped with the most advanced technology the Federation could provide. Its crew of 200 had been handpicked for a deep space reconnaissance mission to investigate reports of unusual energy readings in the Outer Rim. Instead, they had found themselves catapulted into an unknown region of space, possibly even another galaxy entirely. "Admiral," Ensign Rodriguez called from the sensor array, "I'm detecting a planetary system approximately 2 light-hours ahead. 3 planets orbiting a Class G star, similar to Earth's sun." Daney's felt a spark of hope. "Life signs?" "Scanning now, sir." Rodriguez's fingers danced over the holographic interface. "The second planet. Admiral, it's showing strong biosignatures. Oxygen, nitrogen atmosphere, liquid water, and—" He paused, his face pale. "Sir, I'm reading structures that appear to be artificial. Massive ones." The Admiral exchanged glances with Commander Vasquez. In all their years of exploration, humanity had encountered only microbial life and the remnants of long-dead civilizations. The possibility of encountering active alien intelligence was both thrilling and terrifying. "Set course for the second planet," Daney's ordered. "Standard approach protocol. All departments yellow alert." As the Endeavour adjusted its trajectory, the crew began preparations for what might be humanity's first contact with an alien species. In the lower decks, Chief Engineer Thompson ran diagnostics on the ship's defensive systems while Dr. Maya Patel, the xenobiologist, reviewed first contact protocols that had been theoretical until this moment. 2 days later, the second planet dominated the main viewer. It was a world of impossible beauty. Swirling clouds of silver and gold danced through an azure atmosphere, while vast continents revealed landscapes that seemed to shift and change even as they watched. Crystalline formations jutted from the surface like frozen lightning, reaching toward space with an almost organic fluidity. "Orbital insertion complete," reported Lieutenant Chin. "Maintaining standard observation distance." Dr. Voss was practically vibrating with excitement. "Admiral, the readings are extraordinary. The planet's electromagnetic field is generating patterns I've never seen before. It's as if the entire world is thinking." "Explain," Daney said sharply. "The energy flows across the planet's surface follow neural pathway patterns. If I didn't know better, I'd say this entire world is a living organism, or at least governed by one. Commander Vasquez frowned. Could it be dangerous? Unknown. But Admiral, Voss continued, I'm detecting multiple launch points on the surface. Something is coming up to meet us. On the viewer, dozens of lights began rising from the planet's surface. They moved with purpose and grace, leaving trails of luminescent energy in their wake. As they approached, the crew could see they were not ships in any conventional sense, but rather geometric forms that pulsed with inner light, tetrahedrons, spheres, and complex polyhedrons that defied easy description. Red alert, Danes commanded. Shields up, but do not charge weapons. If these beings wanted to destroy us, they probably could have done so already. The alien craft formed a perfect sphere around the Endeavor, maintaining exactly the same distance from the human vessel. Then, impossibly, a voice spoke directly into the minds of every crew member aboard the ship. Welcome, travelers from the distant spiral. We are the Zephyrians. Your arrival was foretold in the Song of Stars. We invite you to experience the beauty of our world. Dr. Patel, monitoring from the science deck, reported frantically over the comm system. Admiral, they're communicating via direct neural interface. The technology required for this is beyond our comprehension. The voice continued, accompanied by images that appeared in their minds, visions of crystal cities, beings of pure energy dancing through gardens of living light, and knowledge beyond human understanding. We know of your displacement, Admiral Danes. The entity that brought you here serves purposes you do not yet understand. Come visit our world. We have much to show you, and perhaps we can aid in your journey home. Danes felt the weight of command pressing upon his shoulders. The promise of help returning home was tantalizing, but every instinct warned him of potential danger. Yet they were low on supplies, and their crew needed hope. Dr. Voss, analysis of their technology? Far beyond ours, Admiral. But I'm not detecting any hostile intent. Their energy signatures are peaceful, for lack of a better word. After a long moment, Danes made his decision. Very well. We'll accept their invitation. But we go prepared and we go together. Commander Vasquez, select a landing party of 30 personnel. Full equipment load. The landing party materialized on the alien world in a cascade of silver light. The Zephyrians' transportation technology made human transporters seem primitive by comparison. They found themselves standing in what could only be described as a garden of crystal and song. Massive formations of what appeared to be living crystals stretched toward the sky, each one humming with different harmonic frequencies that combined to create an almost musical ambience. The Zephyrians themselves were breathtaking. They appeared as humanoid figures composed of flowing energy, their forms shifting between solid and translucent states. When they moved, they left trails of light that hung in the air for several seconds before fading. They had no discernible faces, yet somehow conveyed emotion and intent through the patterns of their luminescence. One being approached Admiral Danes, its form stabilizing into a more solid appearance as it drew near. When it spoke, its voice resonated directly in their minds, but now it had taken on a distinctly feminine quality. I am Lyralii, speaker for the collective. We welcome you to Zephyros, Admiral of the Star Wanderers. Thank you for your hospitality, Danes replied aloud, unsure if they could hear his words or only his thoughts. We are honored by your welcome, but we're concerned about our displacement from our home space. Can you help us return? Lyralii's form pulsed with what seemed like sadness. The one who brought you here is known to us as the Harbinger of Dusk. It is ancient beyond measure, a being that feeds on the suffering of others. It has taken many travelers over the eons, transporting them to what your language might call the realm of shadows. Dr. Voss stepped forward, his scientific curiosity overriding protocol. A parallel dimension? Another plane of existence? More complex than that, seeker of knowledge. It is a space between spaces, where the boundaries between life and death become meaningless. The Harbinger uses it as a hunting ground, trapping souls there to feed upon their despair. Commander Vasquez's hand moved to her weapon. Are you saying we've been marked by this entity? Not yet, Lyralii replied, her form brightening. But the displacement was merely the first step. The Harbinger will come for you soon, seeking to complete its trap. However, we may be able to help you escape this fate. She gestured toward a structure that hadn't been visible moments before, a towering spire of crystalline material that seemed to phase in and out of reality. This is a Nexus Gate, one of the few remaining from the time of the architects. It can transport matter across vast distances instantaneously, but it requires a specific harmonic frequency to operate. What's the catch? Danes asked, his military instincts detecting the unspoken conditions. The knowledge of how to operate the Nexus Gate was lost when the architects disappeared eons ago. However, we believe there may be records in the Archive of Echoes, located in the sacred city of Lum Spire. Dr. Patel, who had been scanning the environment with her tricorder, looked up with excitement. Admiral, the biological diversity here is incredible. I'm reading at least 1,000 different species within just this small area. Lyraliai's attention turned to the xenobiologist. You appreciate the beauty of life in its many forms. This pleases the collective. Yes, our world is a garden tended by many hands over countless generations. As they spoke, more Zephyrians began to appear, their forms curious and welcoming. Children, if such a term could apply to beings of pure energy, danced around the humans, their laughter creating cascades of colored light in the air. How far is this Lum Spire? Commander Vasquez asked, ever practical. A journey of 3-day cycles by our transportation. But I must warn you, the path to Lum Spire passes through regions where the barriers between dimensions are thin. The Harbinger's influence grows stronger there, and you may encounter difficulties. Admiral Danes considered their options. They could remain with the Endeavor and hope to find another way home, but their supplies were limited and they had no leads on escape. The Zephyrian seemed benevolent, but he'd learned through hard experience that alien motivations could be incomprehensible to human minds. We'll need to discuss this with our full crew, he said finally. Can you give us time to consider your offer? Of course. Time flows differently here than in your realm. Take what you need. But be aware that each passing moment makes the Harbinger's influence stronger. Soon, it will be able to breach the protective barriers around our world. As if summoned by her words, the sky began to darken at the edges. Not the natural darkness of approaching night, but an unnatural shadow that seemed to devour light itself. The Zephyrians around them began to pulse with alarm, their forms becoming more agitated. It comes, Lyraliai said urgently. The Harbinger has found you sooner than expected. You must make your choice now. Come with us to Lum Spire, or face the entity here. The darkness spread across the sky like spilled ink, bringing with it a cold that seemed to penetrate not just the body but the soul itself. The crystalline formations around them began to resonate with a discordant frequency, their harmonic songs becoming wails of distress. Admiral Danes activated his communicator. Danes to Endeavor. Report status. Commander Rhea's voice crackled through with interference. Admiral, we're detecting massive energy distortions throughout the system. Something's creating spatial rifts, and our sensors are going haywire. Above them, the sky began to tear like fabric. Through the rifts, they could see another realm, a place of perpetual twilight where massive forms moved through a landscape of bone and shadow. The sight filled the landing party with instinctive dread. The realm of shadows, Lyraliai transmitted, her form now blazing with defensive energy. The Harbinger seeks to pull you through. From the largest rift, something began to emerge. It was vast and terrible, a creature that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Its form was constantly shifting, sometimes appearing as a massive shadowy tentacle, sometimes as a geometric impossibility that hurt to look at directly. But always, there was the sense of ancient malevolence and insatiable hunger. The Harbinger spoke, its voice a chorus of whispers that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Humans, your fear calls to me. Your souls will feed my eternal hunger. Dr. Voss stumbled backward, his scientific instruments sparking and failing in the entity's presence. Admiral, the energy readings are off the charts. This thing exists across multiple dimensional planes simultaneously. The Zephyrians formed a defensive circle around the humans, their combined light creating a barrier against the encroaching darkness. But even their advanced abilities seemed strained against the Harbinger's power. "We cannot hold it for long," Lyralii warned. "You must choose, come with us now, or be taken to the realm of shadows." Admiral Danes made a command decision born from decades of military experience. "Landing party, prepare for immediate transport to the ship. We're not abandoning our people." "That path is closed," the Harbinger laughed, its voice like grinding stone. "Your vessel is already marked. See how your companions struggle against my influence." Through his communicator, Danes could hear the chaos aboard the Endeavour. Crew members were reporting nightmarish visions, equipment failures, and spatial distortions that made navigation impossible. Lyralii's form pulsed with urgency. "The only way to save your people is to close the rifts from the source. The archive of echoes contains the knowledge needed to banish the Harbinger back to its realm, but you must reach it before the barriers fail completely." Commander Vasquez stepped forward, her weapon drawn though she knew it would be useless against such an entity. "Admiral, if we split up, some of us could return to the ship while others go to this archive." "Impossible," Lyralii replied. "The Harbinger's influence now extends to your vessel. Any who attempt to return will be pulled into the realm of shadows. Your only hope is to move forward." The decision was taken from them as the Harbinger's tendrils of shadow began reaching toward the protective barrier the Zephyrians had created. Where the darkness touched the light, reality itself seemed to break down, revealing glimpses of that terrible otherworld. "All right," Danes said grimly. "We go to Lumen Spire. But I want a continuous comm link with the ship, and if we find a way to help them from the archive, we take it immediately." "Agreed. But we must leave now." The Zephyrians began to chant in harmonies that transcended sound, creating a transportation matrix around the humans. As the world dissolved into streams of light around them, Admiral Danes caught a last glimpse of the Endeavour through the dimensional rifts, seeing his ship besieged by tentacles of living shadow, while his crew fought desperately against an enemy beyond their comprehension. They materialized in a vast crystalline cavern that stretched beyond the reach of their lights. The walls were covered in formations that resembled frozen music, curves and spirals that seemed to follow mathematical principles too complex for human understanding. Bioluminescent organisms provided a soft, ever-changing glow that painted the cavern in shifting patterns of blue and silver. "This is the resonance chamber," Lyralii explained as she led them deeper into the cavern. "One of the waypoints on the path to Lumen Spire. Here, we can rest and prepare for the journey ahead." The human landing party consisted of 30 individuals, including Admiral Danes, Commander Vasquez, Dr. Voss, Dr. Patel, Chief Engineer Thompson, and 25 Marines and specialists. They had been chosen for their expertise and mental resilience, but the encounter with the Harbinger had shaken them all. "Status report," Danes ordered as they established a temporary camp. Chief Thompson activated his portable diagnostic unit. "Power cells at 87%, Admiral. Most equipment is functioning normally, though I'm getting some strange resonance effects from the local environment." Dr. Patel was already studying the bioluminescent organisms with fascination. "Admiral, these life forms are unlike anything in our databases. They seem to exist in a state between energy and matter, similar to our hosts." Dr. Voss was examining the crystal formations with growing excitement. "These aren't just random growths, they're storing and processing information. Each crystal formation is like a massive data storage device." Lyralii's form brightened with approval. "Your seeker of knowledge perceives truly. The crystals contain the memories of our people spanning millions of your years. They record not just events, but emotions, experiences, and knowledge itself." "Can they tell us more about this Harbinger?" Commander Vasquez asked. "Much and little. The Harbinger is old, older than our civilization, older perhaps than our star. It exists in the spaces between realities, feeding on the suffering of sentient beings. It was banished once by the architects, but the knowledge of how they accomplished this was scattered across multiple archives when they departed." "Departed?" Danes pressed. "What happened to them?" Lyralii's form dimmed with sadness. "They ascended to a higher plane of existence, leaving behind only their tools and knowledge. The Nexus gates, the archives, the protective barriers, all are remnants of their legacy. As they spoke, other Zephyrians began to gather around them. Unlike Lyralii, these beings seemed more primitive somehow, their forms less stable and their communication more limited. Dr. Patel noted with fascination that they appeared to exist in different evolutionary stages. These are the Grove Tenders, Lyralii explained. They maintain the crystalline libraries and ensure the knowledge remains accessible. They have volunteered to guide us to Lumen Spire, for they know the safe paths through the dimensional barriers. One of the Grove Tenders approached Dr. Voss, its form pulsing with curious patterns. It extended what might have been an arm, and when the scientist hesitantly reached out to touch it, images flooded his mind, visions of the Archive of Echoes, a vast library containing the sum total of architect knowledge. Admiral, Voss gasped, staggering back from the contact. I saw it, the archive. It's not just a library, it's a living repository of consciousness. The architects didn't just leave their knowledge behind, they left parts of themselves. This is true, Lyralii confirmed. But accessing their consciousness requires great risk. The human mind is not designed to interface directly with architect technology. The attempt could destroy your sanity, or worse. Admiral Danes felt the weight of command bearing down on him again. Every choice seemed to lead to greater danger, but inaction meant certain doom for his crew. Through his communicator, he could still hear the periodic reports from the Endeavor. His people were holding on, but barely. How long to reach Lumen Spire? He asked. 2 more day cycles, if we encounter no obstacles. But the path ahead passes through regions where the Harbinger's influence is stronger. We may face illusions, reality distortions, and possibly creatures that have been corrupted by exposure to the realm of shadows. Commander Vasquez checked her weapon systems. What kind of creatures? Beings that were once like us, but were exposed to the Harbinger's influence, and transformed into something between life and death. They serve the entity now, seeking to bring others into its realm. Chief Thompson looked up from his equipment diagnostics. Admiral, I'm detecting significant interference with our communication systems. The deeper we go, the harder it's becoming to maintain contact with the ship. Understood. Continue monitoring and alert me of any changes. Danes turned to Lyralii. We're ready to proceed. Then we must hurry. The Grove Tenders report that the dimensional barriers are weakening faster than expected. If we do not reach the archive within 2-day cycles, the Harbinger may be able to extend its influence throughout this entire region of space. The journey from the resonance chamber to Lumen Spire proved to be unlike anything the humans had ever experienced. The Grove Tenders led them through a series of crystalline tunnels that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. One moment they would be walking on solid ground, the next they would be floating through clouds of luminescent gas while their feet found purchase on surfaces that weren't quite there. Dr. Voss was documenting everything with scientific enthusiasm despite their dire circumstances. The dimensional barriers here are incredibly thin, he explained to Admiral Danes as they navigated a corridor where the walls seemed to be made of flowing time itself. I'm reading quantum fluctuations that suggest we're moving through folded space-time. Your understanding grows, one of the Grove Tenders observed. The architects built these pathways to allow rapid travel across vast distances while remaining hidden from entities like the Harbinger. But even the architects' protections were not absolute. As they progressed deeper into the dimensional maze, signs of the Harbinger's corruption became increasingly evident. Crystal formations that should have been pure and resonant were instead dark and discordant. Some areas were completely dead zones where even the Zephyrian's light seemed muted and weak. Contact ahead, Commander Vasquez reported as her point team reached a junction of 3 pathways. Something's moving in the left corridor. What emerged from the shadows was a horrifying parody of a Zephyrian. Once, it might have been a being of light and energy like Lyralii, but exposure to the Harbinger's influence had transformed it into something twisted and wrong. Its form constantly shifted between light and shadow, and when it moved, reality bent around it in nauseating ways. A shade walker, Lyralii whispered with obvious horror. one of our people who was taken during the Harbinger's last incursion. I knew this one. His name was Thessarian. The corrupted being spoke, its voice a mixture of its original harmonic tone and the grinding whisper of the Harbinger. Come to us, join the eternal feast, your suffering will nourish the void. Can it be saved? Dr. Patel asked, her scientific curiosity warring with obvious revulsion. Unknown. None who have been taken have ever returned unchanged. Commander Vasquez raised her weapon. Admiral, it's moving toward us. Wait, Danes ordered. Lyralii, is there any way to communicate with what remains of your friend? Perhaps. But it is dangerous. The Shade Walker may try to pull us into its corrupted realm. Despite the risk, Lyralii stepped forward, her form brightening as she attempted to reach the consciousness that might still exist within the twisted being. For a moment, Thessarian's form stabilized, becoming more like his original self. Lyralii? Is that? No, it cannot be. I am lost in the spaces between death and dream. The Harbinger shows me such wonders, such terrible, beautiful things. Fight it, old friend, Lyralii projected. Remember who you were. Remember the songs we shared beneath the crystal stars. For a heartbreaking moment, it seemed like her words might reach him. Thessarian's form became almost completely stable, and the humans could see what he must have looked like before his corruption, a being of graceful energy with patterns that resembled flowing music. But then the Harbinger's influence reasserted itself, and Thessarian screamed, a sound that was felt rather than heard, a psychic cry of agony that sent several Marines to their knees. Too late for me, but you can still escape, the left path, avoid the central route. The Harbinger has seeded it with nightmares. With that warning, the Shade Walker dissolved into shadows, leaving behind only the acrid smell of ozone and corruption. The grove tenders led them down the left pathway, their forms dimmer now with grief for their lost companion. The route proved longer but safer, winding through regions where the dimensional barriers remained strong enough to keep out the worst of the Harbinger's influence. During their rest periods, Dr. Voss continued to study the crystalline formations they encountered, building a growing understanding of architect technology. Admiral, I'm beginning to see patterns in these constructions. The architects weren't just advanced, they were operating on principles of physics that we haven't even theorized yet. Will that help us operate their archive? Danes asked. Possibly. But Lyralii was right about the danger. Human consciousness isn't structured to interface with architect systems. We might need to find another way. Chief Thompson looked up from his equipment. Sir, I'm still receiving intermittent signals from the Endeavor, but they're getting weaker. Last report indicated they were holding position, but crew morale is deteriorating due to the visions. The Admiral's jaw tightened. He knew his people were suffering while he pursued what might be a futile quest. But they had no other options. The Harbinger had made sure of that. We are close now, one of the grove tenders announced. Lummen's Spire lies just beyond the next dimensional fold. Lummen's Spire defied every expectation the humans had formed during their journey. As they emerged from the final dimensional tunnel, they found themselves standing on a platform of crystallized light overlooking a city that existed in multiple realities simultaneously. The buildings, if they could be called that, were structures of pure thought made manifest, shifting and changing according to the needs and desires of their inhabitants. Towers of condensed starlight reached toward the sky while gardens of temporal flowers bloomed in patterns that traced the flow of causality itself. The very air hummed with knowledge and possibility. Behold Lummen's Spire, Lyralii said with obvious pride, the crown jewel of our civilization and the final repository of architect wisdom. Dr. Patel was scanning frantically with her instruments. Admiral, I'm reading life signs, but they're unlike anything we've encountered before. Some appear to be pure consciousness without physical form. The Ascended Ones, one of the grove tenders explained, are people who have evolved beyond the need for physical existence. They maintain the city and guard the archive of echoes. As they descended toward the city proper, beings of even greater advancement than Lyralii came to greet them. These entities appeared as geometric patterns of light that conveyed meaning through color, and movement rather than words. Their presence was simultaneously reassuring and overwhelming. "Welcome, children of distant Earth," they communicated through harmonies that bypassed language entirely. "We have watched your struggle with the Harbinger and admire your courage. But know that the path ahead requires sacrifice that may be beyond your species' capacity to bear." Admiral Daney stepped forward, his military bearing intact despite the alien environment. "We're willing to take any risk necessary to save our people and stop this entity. The Harbinger cannot be destroyed, only banished. This requires the activation of a Nexus Gate configured with specific harmonic frequencies that exist only in the archive of echoes. But accessing this knowledge requires a direct neural interface with architect consciousness, an experience that has driven many beings to madness." Dr. Voss pushed through his scientific excitement to ask the crucial question. What exactly would this interface involve? A human consciousness would need to merge temporarily with an architect template stored within the archive. During this merger, the human would experience the full weight of architect knowledge and memory spanning millions of years. Most minds collapse under the strain. Commander Vasquez frowned. Most minds? Some have survived? A few. Those with exceptional mental discipline and a strong sense of purpose. But even survivors are forever changed by the experience. The Admiral considered their options. The risk was enormous, but the alternative was the loss of his entire crew to an entity that fed on suffering. What are the exact odds of survival? For a human consciousness? Perhaps 1 in 10. And of those who survive, many wish they had not. The brutal mathematics of command weighed on Daney's. He had 30 people with him and 200 more aboard the Endeavor. Even if the attempt killed him, it was worth the risk if it meant saving them all. "I'll do it," he said without hesitation. "No," Dr. Voss interjected firmly. "Admiral, with respect, you're needed to command the mission. My scientific training makes me the logical choice. I have experience with alien neural interfaces and quantum consciousness theory. Asterisk. I won't order anyone to take this risk." Daney's replied. "You're not ordering me, sir. I'm volunteering. Besides," Voss managed a weak smile, "think of what I might learn in there." Before anyone else could object, the Ascended Ones communicated their approval. "The seeker of knowledge shows wisdom. His mind is already partially adapted to our thought patterns through his studies of our technology." Lyraliai's form pulsed with concern. "There is another complication. The Archive of Echoes is located at the city center, but the Harbinger's influence has begun to penetrate even here. Shadewalkers now patrol the outer districts, seeking to corrupt the knowledge stored within." As if summoned by her words, the sky above Lummen Spire began to darken with the same unnatural shadow they had seen before. The beautiful structures of the city wavered as dimensional barriers came under assault. "It comes," the Ascended Ones warned. "The Harbinger has sensed your presence here and seeks to prevent you from accessing the archive. You must hurry." The center of Lummen Spire was dominated by a structure that hurt to look at directly, not because it was bright, but because it existed in too many dimensions simultaneously for human perception to process. The Archive of Echoes appeared as a constantly shifting geometric form that sometimes resembled a vast library, sometimes a crystalline tree, and sometimes pure mathematical concepts given form. "The accumulated knowledge of the architects," one of the Ascended Ones explained as they approached. "Everything they learned about the nature of reality, the structure of consciousness, and the methods of manipulating dimensional barriers." Shadewalkers emerged from the corrupted districts around them, their twisted forms moving with unnatural speed. Commander Vasquez and her Marines formed a defensive perimeter, while the Zephyrians prepared to assist with their energy weapons. "How long will the interface take?" Admiral Daney's asked as they reached the archive's entrance. "Unknown. Time flows differently within the repository. Dr. Voss may experience subjective years while only moments pass in our reality." Dr. Voss stepped forward, his face pale but determined. "Admiral, if something goes wrong, if I don't come back as myself, you have permission to do whatever is necessary." "Doctor," Daney's grasped the scientist's shoulder. "Heinrich, come back to us. That's an order." Voss managed a genuine smile. I'll do my best, sir. The entrance to the archive opened before them, not a door, but a gap in reality itself. Beyond lay a space that seemed infinite, filled with floating constructs of crystallized knowledge and streams of pure information. Place your hand on the interface crystal, the Ascended Ones instructed, indicating a formation near the entrance that pulsed with warm light. It will begin the merger process. As Dr. Voss approached the crystal, the sounds of battle erupted behind them. The Shadewalkers had reached their position, and the Marines were engaging them with plasma weapons while the Zephyrians provided support with focused energy beams. Contact! Commander Vasquez shouted. Multiple hostiles approaching from all directions. Hurry, Lyralii urged. The corruption spreads faster than expected. Dr. Voss placed his hand on the interface crystal, and immediately his consciousness was pulled into a realm beyond physical existence. He found himself floating in a space filled with the accumulated memories and knowledge of an entire civilization that had existed for millions of years. The experience was overwhelming. He witnessed the birth and death of stars, the evolution of consciousness across countless species, and the development of technologies that could reshape reality itself. But at the center of it all was knowledge of the Harbinger, an entity from the spaces between universes that fed on the suffering of sentient beings. Welcome, seeker of truth. The voice belonged to an architect consciousness, vast and ancient beyond human comprehension. Dr. Voss felt his sanity straining under the weight of contact with such an intelligence. I need to know how to banish the Harbinger, he managed to think coherently. The knowledge you seek comes with a price. To understand our methods, you must experience our memories. Prepare yourself. What followed was an eternity compressed into moments. Voss experienced the architect's first encounter with the Harbinger, their long struggle to develop weapons that could affect a transdimensional entity, and their final victory that came at the cost of their own civilization. The Harbinger was a creature of pure entropy, existing in the quantum foam between realities. It could only be banished by creating a harmonic resonance that would collapse the dimensional bridges it used to travel between worlds. This required the coordinated activation of multiple nexus gates, each attuned to specific frequencies that would create a containment field. But the knowledge came with a terrible understanding. The process would require enormous amounts of energy, and the only available source was the life force of a sentient being. The architects had sacrificed themselves to banish the Harbinger the first time, ascending to pure consciousness to provide the necessary power. Now you understand, the architect consciousness communicated with something like sadness. To save your people, one must sacrifice everything. Dr. Voss absorbed the technical specifications for operating the Nexus gates while grappling with the moral implications of what he had learned. When he finally emerged from the interface, he found himself back in the physical world where the battle against the Shadewalkers was reaching a desperate crescendo. Doctor! Admiral Danes helped him to his feet. Did you find what we need? Voss nodded weakly, his eyes holding new depths of knowledge and sorrow. I know how to banish the Harbinger, Admiral. But the cost. He looked around at his companions. The process requires the life force of a sentient being. Someone has to die to power the Nexus gates. The battle around them intensified as more Shadewalkers poured into the central district of Lum and Spire. The Marines' plasma weapons were effective against the corrupted beings, but for every one they destroyed, two more seemed to take its place. The very air was becoming thick with the Harbinger's influence. Fall back to the Nexus gate, Admiral Danes ordered. We'll make our stand there. The gate was visible now, a towering construct of crystalline energy that rose from the city's heart like a frozen flame. But between them and their goal lay hundreds of Shadewalkers, and behind them, the sky was tearing open to reveal glimpses of the realm of shadows. The time of choosing has come, the Harbinger's voice echoed across the dimensional barriers. Surrender to me, and I will grant your crew swift deaths. Resist, and they will suffer for eternity. Dr. Voss struggled to his feet, his mind still reeling from the interface with architect consciousness. Admiral, I have the activation codes for the Nexus gate, but... He looked around at their desperate situation. Someone needs to remain behind to complete the sequence. The process will drain their life force completely. The weight of command had never felt heavier on Admiral Daney's shoulders. He had led these people into this situation, and now he was faced with asking one of them to die to save the rest. "I'll do it," he said quietly. "No, sir." Commander Vasquez stepped forward. "The crew needs you to get them home." "I should." "Belay that order, Elena." Daney's voice carried the authority of decades of command. "I won't ask anyone else to make this sacrifice." Dr. Voss shook his head. "Admiral, it has to be me. I'm the only one who fully understands the process now. The architect knowledge is integrated into my consciousness. If anyone else attempts it, they might make a mistake that dooms us all." "He speaks truth," Lyralii confirmed sadly. "The neural interface has made him the only one capable of operating their technology safely." The Shadewalkers were closing in despite the Marines' defensive fire. Chief Thompson's weapons were running low on power, and several team members had been wounded by the corrupted being's energy attacks. Dr. Voss looked around at his companions, people he had served with for years, friends who had become like family during their long journey through space. "Get everyone to the gate. I'll need 5 minutes to complete the activation sequence." "Heinrich." Admiral Danes grasped the scientist's arm. "Are you sure about this?" Voss managed a smile that was both sad and proud. "Admiral, I've spent my entire life seeking knowledge. What better way to use what I've learned than to save the lives of those I care about?" He paused, then added more quietly. "Besides, the architect consciousness, it's still there, in my mind. I won't be entirely alone." The retreat to the Nexus Gate was a fighting withdrawal that cost them dearly. 3 Marines fell to Shadewalker attacks, and Dr. Patel was severely injured while trying to help a wounded teammate. But they reached the crystalline structure with Dr. Voss still mobile and capable of completing his task. The gate itself was magnificent, a spiral of crystallized energy that reached toward the darkening sky like a lighthouse beacon. Control interfaces covered its base, displaying symbols that hurt human eyes to look at directly. "How long do you need?" Commander Vasquez asked as she organized the final defensive perimeter. 5 minutes, Voss replied, his hands already moving over the alien controls. The architect knowledge flowed through his consciousness, showing him the precise sequence needed to activate the dimensional transport. "The gate will open a portal directly to your ship. Get everyone through as fast as possible. We will hold the Shadewalkers," Lyralii promised, her form blazing with combat energy. The remaining Zephyrians formed a circle around the gate, their combined power creating a barrier of pure light. Dr. Voss began the activation sequence, his consciousness merging once again with the architect template in his mind. The process was even more intense this time, as he needed to maintain the neural link while physically manipulating the controls. Energy began to build within the gate's crystalline structure, and the air around them hummed with dimensional forces. But the Harbinger was not passive in the face of their escape attempt. The entity's influence poured through the dimensional rifts above, sending wave after wave of corrupted energy at the gate. The Shadewalkers pressed their attack with desperate fury, throwing themselves against the Zephyrian barrier. 3 minutes! Voss called out, his voice strained by the effort of maintaining the architect interface. Blood was running from his nose, and his hands shook as they moved over the controls. The portal began to form within the gate's structure, a window showing the bridge of the Endeavor where the remaining crew waited with desperate hope. Admiral Danes could see Commander Reyes organizing teams to receive the returning personnel. "Portal stabilizing," Voss reported. "Get ready to go through." But even as victory seemed within reach, disaster struck. The largest dimensional rift yet tore open directly above them, and the Harbinger itself began to emerge, not just its influence, or its servants, but the entity's actual form. The sight of it was beyond description, a geometric impossibility that existed in too many dimensions for human minds to fully comprehend. "Too late," it whispered with the voices of a billion consumed souls. "I have found the gate. Your escape is ended." The entity's presence began to corrupt the Nexus Gate itself, the crystalline structure darkening as shadows spread through its energy matrix. The portal to the Endeavor flickered and began to destabilize. "No!" Dr. Voss poured more of his life force into the gate, fighting the Harbinger's corruption with everything he had. The architect consciousness in his mind blazed like a star as it added its power to his efforts. The portal stabilized, but Voss collapsed to his knees, his life force draining away rapidly. "Go!" he gasped. "Go now, while the gate still holds." Admiral Danes made the hardest decision of his life. "All personnel, through the gate! Now!" One by one, the survivors of the landing party dove through the portal to safety. The wounded were carried by their comrades, and the Marines provided covering fire until the last possible moment. Finally, only Admiral Danes and Dr. Voss remained beside the gate. "Admiral," Voss whispered, his voice barely audible. Tell them it was worth it. The knowledge I gained, the things I've seen, it was worth the price." Danes knelt beside his friend. "Heinrich, come through the gate. We can find another way." "No time," Voss cut him off. "The harmonics are too unstable. If I stop concentrating on them now, the portal will collapse and trap you all here." He looked up at the Admiral with eyes that held depths of alien knowledge. "Go, sir. That's an order from a dying man." With tears in his eyes, Admiral Danes stepped through the portal just as Dr. Voss made his final sacrifice. The scientist poured the last of his life force into the gate's controls, creating a harmonic resonance that would banish the Harbinger back to the realm of shadows. As his consciousness merged completely with the architect template, the gate erupted in a blaze of light that seemed to push back the very darkness of space itself. The portal collapsed just as Admiral Danes materialized on the bridge of the Endeavour. Around him, his crew worked frantically to break free of the dimensional distortions that had held them prisoner. The ship's sensors showed that the Harbinger was being pulled back through the rifts it had created, its influence waning as the harmonic resonance from the Nexus Gate did its work. "Report!" Danes ordered as he took his position in the command chair. "Dimensional distortions are collapsing, Admiral," Lieutenant Chim reported from the navigation station. "I'm reading clear space in all directions, and, sir, I'm picking up navigation markers. We're back in known space." Commander Reyes stepped forward, relief evident on her face. "Admiral, it's good to have you back. The crew—" She gestured around the bridge where officers were working with renewed energy. "We were beginning to lose hope." "Dr. Voss?" Commander Vasquez asked quietly as she took her station. Danes shook his head, and silence fell over the bridge. Heinrich Voss had been a beloved member of the crew, a brilliant scientist whose curiosity and dedication had saved them all. His sacrifice would not be forgotten. "Sir?" Ensign Rodriguez called from the sensor station. "I'm detecting a ship approaching from the Zephyros system. It's one of their vessels." On the main viewer, a craft of crystalline beauty approached the Endeavour. As it drew near, Lyraliai's voice spoke directly into their minds one final time. "Admiral Danes, your friend's sacrifice has been honored by our people. The harmonics he created will keep the Harbinger banished for countless eons, and his consciousness, it does not simply end. The architect template he merged with preserves something of what he was." "Will we see him again?" the Admiral asked aloud. "In time, perhaps. When your species has evolved enough to safely interface with architect technology, you may find echoes of him within our archives. Until then, know that his knowledge and courage live on." The Zephyrian vessel transmitted the coordinates that would guide them home, along with technological data that would advance human science by centuries. It was Dr. Voss's final gift to his people, the knowledge he had gained through his ultimate sacrifice. As the Endeavour set course for Earth, Admiral Danes stood in his ready room, composing the report that would explain their disappearance and the loss of one of humanity's brightest minds. Outside his viewport, the stars looked different now, not because they had changed, but because he carried with him the knowledge that they were not alone in the universe. There were wonders beyond human imagination waiting among those distant lights, but also dangers that could consume entire civilizations. Humanity would need to grow and evolve before venturing too far into the galaxy's mysteries. But they would grow, and when they did, They would carry with them the memory of Dr. Heinrich Voss and the courage he had shown in the face of impossible odds. The journey home took 6 weeks, but it felt like both an eternity and no time at all. The crew of the Endeavour had been changed by their experience. They had seen the best and worst that the universe could offer, and they had learned that sometimes the greatest victory required the greatest sacrifice. When Earth finally appeared on their screens, Admiral Danes felt a complex mixture of relief, sorrow, and pride. They had lost friends and faced horrors beyond imagination, but they had also forged alliances with beings of incredible wisdom and power. Most importantly, they had proven that humanity was ready to take its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as protectors of the light that existed in all sentient beings. Years later, Admiral Marcus Danes would often find himself standing in the memorial garden that had been built in Dr. Heinrich Voss's honor. The crystalline formations there had been grown using techniques learned from the Zephyrians, and they hummed with harmonics that reminded him of that distant world where his friend had made the ultimate sacrifice. The technology gifted by Lyraliai's people had indeed advanced human civilization by centuries. Clean energy, faster-than-light communication, and medical devices that bordered on miraculous had transformed life on Earth and its colonies. But perhaps more importantly, the knowledge that humanity was part of a greater community of sentient beings had fundamentally changed how humans saw themselves and their place in the universe. New exploration missions were being planned, equipped with better technology and crews trained to recognize the signs of transdimensional threats. The Harbinger had been banished, but other entities existed in the spaces between realities, and humanity would need to be prepared for future encounters. Standing among the memorial crystals, Admiral Danes sometimes thought he could hear an echo of his old friend's voice carried on the harmonic frequencies. Dr. Voss had achieved the immortality that all scientists dream of. His discoveries would live on, protecting future generations from the darkness that lurked between the stars. The portal that had taken them to Zephyros might have closed, but the doorway to a larger universe had opened forever. Humanity's journey among the stars was just beginning, and somewhere in the crystalline archives of distant London Spire, the knowledge and courage of Dr. Heinrich Voss waited to guide them through whatever challenges lay ahead.